Good evening. I'd like to call the North Augusta City Council study session for Monday, November the 25th, 2024 to order. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our city administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We'll go through our study session as our normal practice. We've got 3 items tonight. We'll go through the agenda for next week on the 2nd of December. We'll go through department details, and then we'll go into mayor's matters. And I've got Hurricane Helene recovery efforts, and then I've also got a separate slide under administrative reports I'd like to cover there as well. So first we'll go into the agenda review, and we'll be announcing our employee of the quarter. And then I also hate to say that we're going to be saying fond farewell to Tanya Strickland, who's going to be retiring from the stormwater department, and she's been a stalwart employee for a long time and has certainly been a critical part of our public works department and within the city itself. So we hate to see her go, but that will be the retirement that we'll be formally presenting next week at the council meeting. And then moving into new business, we've got several items. We'll start off with items number 6 and number 7. These are linked. So ordinance number 2024-27, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2025, containing estimates of proposed revenues and expenditures by the city of North Augusta, South Carolina for the budget year beginning January 1st, 2025, and declaring that same shall constitute the budget of the city of North Augusta for such budget year. First reading immediately followed by ordinance number 2024-28, levying the annual tax on property in the city of North Augusta, South Carolina for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025, first reading. What I would like to highlight is this is a lower number of ordinances than you would normally see during a budget year, and the reason for that is because the city council set the water and wastewater rates and enterprise funds based on the changes to the county's rates. And so you all made that action at the beginning of the fiscal year, the federal fiscal year, so 1 October, if you will. And so that's doing a 15-month cycle. So normally you'd see ordinances that were part of that on the enterprise side for water and wastewater, but those have already been voted on by council in a previous session. So this really just gets to your base general fund budget along with levying the taxes and millage. And as a reminder for the council, there is no change to the millage rate. There are some changes within the fee structures for Parks and Rec, but ultimately from a property tax millage rate, we believe we're able to do everything we need to do this coming year without a change to the millage. We wanted to balance that out with the water and wastewater rate increases. We knew that were significant, and so we tried to balance that out with the millage that we had. And we believe we can operate a steady budget next year with what we're given. And so I'll pause for any questions that you may have at this time on those 2 items, so those 2 ordinances about the budget. And I'll cover this under administrative reports towards the end of the evening about the changes to the public safety department's proposed budget based on a decision the council made last week with ARPA that allowed us to make some other updates to the budget. And so I just want to make sure I'll give you a verbal update on those prior to going into the public hearing next week. But I'll cover that here at the end of the evening. So moving then on to items number 8 and 9, and I'll actually probably have Tommy come up with the lectern to discuss those more in depth if required. So item number 8, planning and development ordinance number 2024-29 to approve the general development plan for the 24.14 plus or minus acre Bentley Place planned development located generally on the north side of Walnut Lane, approximately 800 feet west of US 25, first reading. Tommy, is there anything you'd like to be able to tell the council tonight about that particular development?
Basically, this is right behind SRP Credit Union's office, and what they're doing is the existing development plan required the buildings to be no more than 2 bedrooms, and they've got a developer or a contractor that would like to build that out, but he wants that floor plan just doesn't work for him. So what they're doing is changing it to 3 or 4 bedrooms instead of 2 bedrooms. There'll be 2-story instead of 1 story. It'll have a two-car garage. It'll be a mix of shakes, board and batten, and lap siding. And they'll be changing the lot sizes somewhat smaller. But actually, you end up with about a half dozen less lots through this plan than what was previously.
Was there any issue from the planning commission? They were fine with everything?
Correct. They were fine with it. I think it's a half a dozen. I had that number for the planning commission and I dropped it.
And this was originally proposed in 2003, and the changes are now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's a project that has stalled for a long time, and it's kind of good to get it finished.
Okay.
Tommy's going to stay at the lectern because I'm going to move on to the next item, which is ordinance number 2024-30, to change the corporate limits of the city of North Augusta by accepting the petition requesting annexation by the landowners and annexing plus or minus 18.57 acres of property located at Edgefield Road, Highway 25, and Escaga Lake Road, tax parcel number 011-07-01-010, owned by Summers Family, LLP. First reading. Tommy, would you mind telling us what they're looking to do there?
This is a parcel that's straight across from where they're building Parkers at Escaga Lake and Highway 25. It's also it's also contiguous to the parent parcel that QT was cut out of, and they want to annex into the city. They do not have a development or anything in process right now. They want to go ahead and get it in the city so they can market it as being in the city and have city services already established.
There's a zoning change with it too, if it's annexed in.
Well, it's not zoned anything right now,
Okay.
but they're requesting general commercial. And us, that would fit right there. Quick Trip's general commercial, across the street's general commercial.
Everything's GC, yeah. Okay.
All right, moving on to item number 10, under administration, ordinance number 2024-31, amending section 2-21B as in Bravo of the city code for the city of North Augusta, establishing a specific time in the council meeting for newly elected officers to take office. First reading. That's something that Kelly's working on right now. I'll let him kind of carry the ball on this one, just to say that we've had some feedback from the municipal association that in our current ordinances, it doesn't specify the actual time that a newly elected council member takes their oath. It could be the beginning of the meeting, it could be the end of the meeting. Recommendation from the MASC was to actually set that in ordinance such that that was stated unequivocally that they're either getting sworn in at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting. But Kelly, I defer to you on the rest of the commentary.
All right, basically, you covered it apparently, and we have never had the problem here, but apparently there have been some cities where possibly there's been an issue, excuse me, an issue that was coming up for a vote, and the election came at a certain time, and it was going to make a difference whether the new council members were inducted at the start of the meeting or the end of the meeting, and what the municipal association recommended that we set it one way or the other. As I say, historically, we've always done it at the end of the meeting. And quite frankly, I've looked at ordinances in Greenville, Greenwood, Florence, Charleston, and I see that it sets a meeting or a date, but it doesn't say at what point in the order of business. So what ours is, generally what we've done, and of course when you've got the same incumbents coming in, doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but there's been an opportunity for the council members that are leaving to make comments, the new council members, mayor, whatever comes up, and can make some comments at the end of the meeting. And so this is just doing it, quite frankly, the way we've always done it, but now it cannot be an issue that somebody could raise.
But it doesn't matter which we decide, beginning or the end, just so we have something in writing that says we're going to do ours at the end.
What the municipal association suggest, don't just say it's at that meeting.
No, I'm talking about the,
Yeah, so that's what we're doing.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, but it doesn't matter that we decide we're gonna keep it as it is, as long as it's some kind of in writing,
Yeah,
that's the way we'll
yeah,
do it.
we're making it, we are now codifying it
Yeah,
where it's established.
I was looking back when David, Pat, Jen and I, after Mayor Pettit, they did old and new business. And then Judge Murphy did the oath and then allowed each of them to share, then say something about Mayor Pettit, say something about Fletcher. And then the only thing we did was the administrative report, presentations, and then the adjournment. So I think keeping like that is fine. I think it's a good idea.
All right, we'll move on to under Engineering and Public Works, Resolution number 2024-55, accepting an emergency watershed protection program grant from the Natural Resources Conservation Service to perform repairs to waterways damaged by Hurricane Helene. And if you'll recall, we had visitors both from DC and Columbia, from federal and state agencies that came down and looked at some of our waterways. The place that we went to most specifically, if you recall, the Old Willowick Apartments, which is now, I guess, Palmetto Place there off of Bergen Road. There is a stream bed that comes through and actually has cut away a portion of the supporting aspects of the road that's in that parking lot. And so ultimately that is an emergency remediation requirement. And there's also down trees that are in that waterway that are backing up waters and having problems there. So ultimately, when we brought the outside folks in and they were able to assess the damage, they felt that we would be eligible for an emergency grant, if you will. So this would basically be a no-match grant, and so this would allow us to take advantage of it. But there has to be a positive council action, in this case, this resolution, saying that we're applying for this grant and that you will accept the grant if it is given to the city. So this is a no cost to the city application, and so our request is that we go forward on this.
I think this is just another good example of what a great job our directors are doing, Tom and Tanya, and then Jim. Tom and Tanya kind of put their heads together and said, hey, here was an issue. And when the opportunity came for the gentleman to come down, they were able to say, hey, here's the deal. So, if we had not been prepared, then that easily could have gone through. So good job, gentlemen, and I think it's very positive.
How much is that grant for?
Just under $1 million. All right, moving on to item number 12, resolution number 2024-56, authorizing funding allocation recommendations of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee for the disbursement of revenues from the accommodations tax year 2023 to 2024. And I will defer to our city clerk on commentary on this one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you referred, I just passed out the resolution up in front of you all. A tax committee met and they recommend the following list that's on the Exhibit A. And you can see the difference of what they all requested versus the $194,749 that is available. And they were agreeable and recommend the following list. There is a note that number 10, Parks and Rec, the gym floors, was removed from that list because it's a duplication. They'll be requesting an extension, which will come at another date for that from the prior year. And Exhibit B would be for the 30%. That is also specific to just tourism, and our tourism department is explained on that for that amount for the 89.8 and some change for the new fiscal year.
Organization number 1, Mid-South, that's the first time. What are they doing?
It's actually through Aiken County Tech, and they're going to be holding a conference here over at the Crown Royal, and so they were just asking for a minimal amount, but looking to get some tourism and passing out information to get some other people here.
And one of the requirements is to be able to bring attraction within a 25-mile.
It's 50-mile radius.
50-mile radius, okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to see the applications? I believe last year they were emailed before.
I'm sorry.
Is it possible to see the
Absolutely.
applications just to see kind of where?
Yes. There is
funding's
there
going.
is 14 of them.
Yeah.
So if you, I will piecemeal them to
Yeah.
you because they're quite large.
Sounds good. I'm just curious with the Augusta Symphony. Are they going to be
I am
coming
too.
over here?
Yeah,
That
they're,
one-
they're teaming with SRP.
Yeah, they want to do something at the
Okay.
amphitheater.
Okay, great.
Oh, they do?
I think having Becky Dearden over there is just going to be, she's going to do a great job as the director.
Yeah, I'm just curious what everybody's going to be doing. So I'll just
Absolutely, and I will definitely send that over to you prior to the meeting.
Peach Jam. I mean, we know what the Peach Jam is, but the 20,000 or 15,000. What does that
Throw
cover,
that over to
Jeremy?
the hospitality.
Oh, feeding the player. Now, does that go, like for the food, I know the two churches, First Baptist, True North, they do not buy the food, this is where it's bought,
Right,
they
yeah.
just serve it.
Right, the event supplies the food, and the churches prepare it,
People.
serve it, and any other questions on this item? Under boards and commissions, I'm going to go ahead and remove that off this study session or on the council meeting. We're going to push that to a later council date. So that'll get pushed. Item number 13. And then under item 14 will be an update on Hurricane Helene. So as my practice is every week that the board or the city council meets, I'll provide a formal update on our overall status. And that concludes our agenda review for next week. So if you have any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Paul to tee up our department details.
Thank you, Mr. Clifford. First up for department details is Tara with Finance.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Just the two small updates for Finance Department. Next week, next Monday, December 2nd, will be Cycle 1 due date. And next Tuesday and Wednesday, December 3rd and 4th, will be Cycle 2 disconnect days.
I didn't have a chance to ask Linda about this. So do we have an idea what our time frame is with switching, how we're doing our payment of the?
January.
Yes.
Okay. Every time I get that bill, I'm like, I want to be able to go fix it. All right, thank you.
Next up is Greg with Public Services.
Good evening. How you doing?
So two things for public services, Clay Street pump station upgrade, and concentrating on emergency power set up while we wait on equipment to come in. So the generator pad, retaining wall, generator, electrical duct bank, the slab for the main transformer, all that's been done. We're just waiting on equipment for the actual pump station. And utility water meter upgrade. Utility's been working with the IT department to map out the distribution system to find the most efficient places to put these meters, the automatic reading meters, and they'll be able to get about 1,700 meters with the current funding, and they should be in between April and May of next year.
Council members, that's the part of the ARPA resolution you all passed in the previous council meeting. So that fell under originally the $1.8 million that went into the wastewater line, and then some of that went into premium pay for employees, and the rest of it went into the automated meter reader. So that's this program here, and as Greg stated, we'll have those in hand sometime in the spring, and then we'll brief a full plan to the city council before we start going on that, but we'll lay out a map showing where all the meters are going to be going. It's going to be a long process. It's a pretty manual process.
But that's a lot of meters.
Yes, it is.
And that's going to really help upgrade all our old neighborhoods who don't have it. Hear that? Old neighborhoods.
Next
you,
up is
Greg.
Tommy with Planning and Development.
Mr. Mayor and Council, next week's going to be a busy week for the BZA. They have a meeting on Tuesday evening, and then the next night, Planning Commission and the BZA will have their joint training session from 6 to 9 p.m. for the mandatory 3 hours of in-service training. We're going to have Spencer Wetmore. She's an attorney in land use law, and a former city manager of Myrtle Beach, teaching the class again. She's done it the previous 2 years and does a good job, and both committees get a lot out of it. And then bringing up something that's been dragging, George Avenue traffic calming. One of the things that we're looking at that intersection, that three-way intersection up there, and y'all granted us money to do an in-depth study on that. But we need to get a traffic count of that, a good traffic count. And so we had it scheduled for the weekend of the Ironman. We said, no, that's not good. So then Hurricane Helena came through that weekend. And so, well, that knocked us out a few weeks. And our transportation engineer goes, all right, well, we'll come up there. No, that's Jack-o'-lantern Jubilee weekend. So then we set it up, and Mr. Clifford comes in and says, well, you know, they've messed up on the other side of the river there. So we've had a time.
That's not what I said, Tommy. I said they were doing construction on 30th Street.
Cliff notes, boss, cliff notes. But so hopefully they will be finished with that on the other side of the river with their brickwork and stuff by next week. And if that's the case, we'll be doing it Wednesday and then the following Sunday as doing the traffic counts there. And if they're not finished across the river, we're going to have to kick the can a little bit more because it's important we get good numbers there.
Glad you're doing Sunday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tommy. Next up is Chief Johnson, Public Safety.
Good evening. As you can see on your sheet, last week we had a graduation at Aiken Public Safety. We did a combined class with them, and we got 6 of our employees they completed the training through the South Carolina Fire Academy, so they're certified there. And then a couple weeks ago on the 15th, we had one graduate the Police Academy, and we will have another one graduating the Police Academy on the 6th.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next is Jeremy with Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So today we really pushed up the boat ramp cleanup in preparation for some of the site work that y'all have approved to be done out there. So construction pieces will be moved in there. Got that all cleaned up and ready to roll. Greenway contract work is still kind of moving. We're moving down towards the Hammond Hill Suburban Club and past that on to the Martintown Road Bridge. Because there's not a lot of easements within that section, it's kind of when they start, it'll be a little bit longer information time to finish. So we've kind of come up with a plan to provide information at like end of day with end of work week. So this week will be Wednesday because everybody's off Thursday and Friday. And then within that period, the next time, each Friday, we'll give a pretty solid update about where we are on Greenway movement throughout that process. So along with that, kind of coming back down to the other end now that we're open, we got our crew back on regular maintenance, trash pickup, blowing, so we can keep this section of it clear and clean. And as each piece opens up, we'll keep that clear and clean as well. Last thing, we're really just, we're into basketball season, so everybody's inside. Got, almost 700 kids right now, and it's still kind of just rolling in. And so we're going to get the youth season started off here pretty shortly and get everybody excited about being inside playing basketball.
Jeremy, just make sure the cleanup around the boat ramp, that's that one side that's full of mud and thick that
Yes.
they called. A lot of folks have been asking about.
Yes, so we got all that cleared up. Plus, the fact that they're bringing in some pavers to build out that left side. So we kind of needed to get the laydown area cleaned up so they can get a lot of that done too. But yes, the mud's pretty clean. We've been able to get a lot of that cleared out, and then we're ready to do the.
Do you mind posting that on y'all's Parks and Rec
Sure will.
Facebook?
Yep, we got some good pictures.
That'd be very helpful.
Good picture. It looks a lot better.
That'd be very helpful.
All right. Yep.
Thank you. Next up is Carl with Tourism.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Couple all event related here. We're in the holiday season, so kick it off with the Christmas tree lighting at Calhoun Park, starting at 5 o'clock, week from tomorrow, Tuesday, December 3rd. Event will feature performances from local schools, s'more stations by local Boy Scouts, hot chocolate and coffee vendor will be out there, letters of Santa activity, and a Christmas message from Mayor Williams is tradition. The lighting of the tree will be broadcast live on WRDW Channel 12 as well during the 6 o'clock broadcast. Some other notable events from around downtown. Saturday, November 30th, Small Business Saturday in Tinseltown Forest. On Tuesday, December 3rd, after folks, either before or after the Christmas tree lighting event, the Cocoa and Cookie Crawl will be downtown North Augusta. And on Sunday, December 8th, note Lions Club Christmas Parade, having their traditional parade downtown North Augusta as well.
Okay, next is Tom with Engineering and Public Works.
In conjunction with the Property Maintenance Department, removing storm damaged trees down in Hammond's Ferry, our Streets and Drains Department is removing and replacing sidewalk to eliminate tripping hazards. These are sidewalks that have been heaved up by the roots associated with those trees. All that sidewalk should be repoured by the end of day tomorrow. Streets and Drains is also working down on Center Street near the Crown Plaza to install a electric service. This will bring electric power into the median there on Center Street between the Crown Plaza and the stadium for events or other items. And then as Jim mentioned for the agenda, after 25 years, Tanya Strickland will be retiring next Monday. Will be her last day. You'll have the opportunity to recognize her then. Monday, the December 2nd. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to make a big speech tonight, especially since she's not here. Although she would normally be watching this from the comfort of her home, I know she's not because she's currently sitting in her office right now, just finishing up some last minute stuff, which just is a testament to her dedication. I just told Jim last week that I can only hope that after, in my final days of employment here, I am anywhere near as motivated as she still is. But yeah, a former city administrator told me a long time ago that we are all replaceable in our jobs here at North Augusta, and that's absolutely true. But of all the employees I've had to replace, she will be among, if not the hardest one. So I'm sure she would appreciate if any of y'all would like to reach out to her before next Monday. I'm sure she'd appreciate hearing from you.
And last up, but not least, Kayla with Human Resources.
Hold your tears back, Kayla.
Evening, Mayor and Council. If you will look on the back of your department details, in addition to our employment opportunities, we have our employee luncheon on December the 12th. We would love for you all to come if you are able. That's all I got.
Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Clifford.
Well, before I go into our various updates, just as a reminder for our citizens, city offices will be closed on Thanksgiving Day, Thursday, and also on Friday. So Thursday and Friday, the city administrative offices will be closed. We'll have personnel working outside on Friday. Obviously, public safety will be working every day. But if you're expecting to come in and pay taxes or do something in planning and development on Thursday or Friday, those days will be closed office days.
Can I suggest something for next year?
Yes, ma'am.
And Park and Recreation, they're off Thursday and Friday. I have always wanted to see them off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Because they're one of the departments other than police that are open, after the holidays. So I'd like to throw that in there for next year.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Jeremy did not tell me to tell that. Did you, Jeremy? No, he did not. I have always just thought it should be. Well, it will mess up with basketball practice, but that gives all the families a rest.
All right, I believe the next thing we'll have up is our Hurricane Helene update for today, the 18th of November. Next slide, please. I think I got that day wrong. Next slide. All right. No changes to the lines of effort. Next slide. No changes to our debris removal lines of effort. So again, just as a highlight for our citizens, there are different capacities for each vehicle. That's an example of one of our city debris trucks on the left-hand side, which has a boom arm and then also has a hauling unit. And again, so people ask sometimes, well, how come you bypassed a root ball that was in the street or a particularly heavy log? And that's the answer. The reason is because that equipment, actually both of those pieces of equipment on the screen, are not capable of picking up the weight of a large root ball, and that's actually going to have to get picked up with a front-end loader and put either on a lowboy or a dump truck. So completely different types of equipment that's required to do a root ball. So our strategy is still to do at least a first pass on all city roads before we get into root ball removal. And I've consistently messaged that on Facebook in these meetings, and just so you as council members have that information as well. These trucks will come through and pick up debris. They will not pick up commingled debris. So if you have construction items on top of that, or if there are cables from telecommunications companies in there, those will not be picked. And here's a nice picture of a lagoon. I'm not sure why that was there. Yes, Councilman.
Can we put that on the Facebook information page about the debris mixed in with, other items?
That's actually already on there in a couple of the different briefings, Councilman, but I can put a separate slide out there if that will help you out.
Yeah, it would.
And so also, when we talk about hauling units, that's the measure that the companies are using right now. So on the left-hand side of the screen with the city truck, that would be considered one hauling unit. And on the right-hand side of the screen, that would be considered two hauling units. So even though it's one vehicle chassis, and it's towing a separate item on there, that's two different bins, if you will, that's picking up. So that's two hauling units there. And today we had 13 hauling units that are contracted, not city equipment, but contracted 13 hauling units that are operating within the city limits today. And also I have here for me, which I'll post on our city webpage tomorrow, we just surpassed 40,000 total cubic yards of debris picked up.
13 units for city streets.
City streets.
Not DOT.
Correct.
City.
Just the city streets. That does not include SCDOT vehicles that are operating in the city, and it does not include the city vehicles. That's just the SDR contracted folks on the 25% of the roads.
And what you told us early on was with SDR that they start out with 2 units, and as things cleared up in Florida and other areas, they were going to keep increasing those units, and now we're seeing 13. That's why so much is happening. So, correct.
All right, next slide, please. No change to the staff guidance. Again, our goal is to achieve as close to 100% reimbursable as possible, and we've had a lot of questions from our citizens about what happens at the end of this 90-day window. And the answer is, from a citizen perspective, almost nothing's going to change. They're still going to be out there doing pickup debris. We're still going to be picking up root balls. What changes is the overall financial plan, and ultimately, we're going to try to exhaust all of our measures to seek additional federal funding, and then if that's unsuccessful, state funding. And pretty much every municipality and county here on this side of South Carolina is doing the exact same thing. And again, we have a lot of crews out doing a lot of things, but my guidance still stands for our crews, which is we do not want to blow out our equipment or our people. So again, we're not going to overextend the use of the trucks if we make a judgment call. So some citizens may go, well, I didn't pick up this log in front of my house, but we may end up having to have the contracted crews, the SDR folks, come in behind us, but we're not going to blow out a truck for one log because that'll deadline a vehicle for several days, if not longer. Next slide. Okay, we've had this discussion several times. There are multiple road networks. You've got private roads, you've got county roads, you've got city roads, and you got state roads. And so those are all laid out there on the map. This map is listed on the city's webpage under Hurricane Helene. It's the very top thing that's listed there. Next slide. And again, we've taught this before. You've got multitudes of roads in the same area. So this hopefully explains somewhat why in the same neighborhood, some roads will get picked up and other roads will not. We're trying to marry up our efforts with SCDOT to the best of our ability, but there are going to be neighborhoods, Hammond Hills certainly in particular, you're going to see a patchwork of roads that are picked up at different intervals, depending on the number of crews that are working in there and whether they're city or SCDOT roads. Next slide. And again, there's another example. You actually got all four in that green circle there. You got city, county, private, and SCDOT roads. Next slide. So we have largely completed what's shown there in the arrow. And so we are currently working, or I should say we're operating in that arrow. We've got crews that are still working in the Rapids and also crews that are still working in Hammond Hills. And we've now started to move additional crews as they float into the city across Martintown Road for the first time and are now working in Lyndhurst. So we have one crew working in Hidden Hills and one crew working in North Hills. So both of those are in the backs of those neighborhoods and working, and they're continuing to press and do that. And our guidance to the SDR crews is, as crews become either available because of work they've already completed or new crews roll into the city, then we want to get into Knollwood and also the areas around Paul Knox Middle School. Next slide. So this is the slide probably that you were referring to, Councilman. So this is vegetative debris only is what's getting picked up. Again, I'll take pictures from time to time as I drive around town and use that as an example of, hey, this is not going to get picked up because there's a playground swing set inside, like a metal playground swing in a pile, or things you can't see through, or even just black plastic trash bags on top of a pile. They're not going to pick those up. So normally when we see citizens that are sending us a demand signal about, hey, our pile got passed over, and we'll go out and take a look at it, 9 times out of 10 it's because it's got commingled debris in there, and we have to tell them, hey, you've got to manually separate that out because they will not pick up that pile until it is completed that way. Next slide. So for this coming week, just got a couple areas to highlight. We've got city crews that just started today over by Fire Station 3. That's on the far side of Belvedere. So that's Ridgefield Drive and then part of Edisto Drive. Not the whole thing, but part of that. So we've got city crews that have started working on there. And then if you go to the very east side of town, Swallow Lake Drive is pretty far out there, but it's right on the edge of the city limits. And then also some of the areas inside Belvedere that are cul-de-sacs or smaller areas like Bel Air Road. And so we're going to have city crews working on those areas because we assess SDR is not going to be able to get to them for a while. And so these are ones that we can do with our own crews. So that's what they're going to be working on this week here through Thanksgiving. Next slide. So for Thanksgiving week, just wanted to give some visibility of who's working when. So right now, SDR and Tetra Tech, which are contracted crews, are working today and tomorrow. And then they're going to demobilize. Most of these crews are from, not this area. They're from out of state. So they're going to demobilize on Wednesday, go home for Thanksgiving, enjoy Thanksgiving weekend with their families, and then come back here on Sunday and pick up work on Monday. So we'll have a lot of trucks still working here through tomorrow, but I would expect that the level of activity seen in town is going to decrease significantly on Wednesday for the long weekend. You're going to see R&R Tree Service, which is our contractor that's currently working the Greenway. They're working all the way through Wednesday. They're taking Thursday and Friday off, and then we'll be back in working on Saturday and Sunday. And then city crews are working every day this week except for Thanksgiving. And they would have worked on Thanksgiving if I told them they didn't have to work on Thanksgiving. But they volunteered to work Thanksgiving Day, and I basically said, hey, you're going to take Thanksgiving off, and we'll at least take one day home with your families. But we've got some pretty dedicated folks out there doing God's work, if you will.
They're doing awesome. Jason's group, tremendous.
I would say we have, sanitation, we have utilities, we have streets and drains, we have property maintenance. Every property maintenance over in public services and also property maintenance inside Parks and Rec. So everybody that's an outside, workforce member is doing something that's directly related to storm debris removal right now, and we're grateful to have them on the staff. Next slide. So again, just as a reminder for everybody, because this comes up every once in a while, we do have some debris sites in town. Those are not for our residents. There's a chain of custody, if you will, required by FEMA for the debris that's getting pulled off of both city trucks and also SDR and Tetra Tech. And so ultimately, that is only for those entities. If you are a private citizen and you wish to take a pickup truck or a trailer's worth of debris somewhere, Barden will take it, and that's free to a citizen who's got a North Augusta or Aiken County address on their South Carolina driver's license. Next slide. Again, that's just a visual representation of where that Barton CMU is, which again is kind of out towards the backside of Aiken Tech. 11 road miles, if you will, from City Hall. Next slide. We've talked through this a number of different times. What I would tell you that's different today is that last week we started on removing some of the overhanging trees. So R&R Tree Service has started to remove trees that our city arborist, Roy Kibler, has determined are hazardous. And again, these are not trees that are going over the roadway. These are trees that are hanging over from city property, and the greenway is a good example of, hey, if you have a tree that's coming off the greenway easement and leans over into your backyard and looks like it's going to tip over onto your shed or your house, those are the kinds of trees that likely our arborists would say are leaners or hazardous trees, and then we task R&R to remove those trees. I believe they've removed 4 or 5 trees this past week already. Next slide. No changes to our operation end state. Again, I think we're making progress in each of these fronts. We have road hazards which are being identified and removed. We have road debris which is being cleared. We have R&R Tree Service working to remove hazardous trees from our greenway and from our parks. We'll be presenting, basically what we get from our insurance agents through MASC to say this is what's eligible and what is not, and then also continue to work the greenway so it's passable from end to end, starting south, working north. Next slide. Any questions on debris?
I think I just want to clarify this. So when we had a community engagement meeting last Tuesday, Jim gave a very in-depth presentation, more so than this. So citizens can understand, if you go to the city website, when you pull up our city website, there's a big red bar that says Hurricane Helene. If you click on that and go under, and says a link that says reports, that whole presentation is there, which is, I think, is quite frankly, for some of this information, even better than our public information page. So information is out there.
All right, Jamie, if you'd bring up our other slide. Next slide, please. So really just 2 things I wanted to highlight tonight for the city council members under administrative reports. One is the ARPA impacts on the budget. The city council voted to allow us to move ARPA funds into a variety of different categories. And one of the requests we had under there was under public safety, which allowed us to fund the COPS grant officers, which gives us 3 officers that we've been paying for out of Hyde through the CAT team. And so ultimately, by funding 1 police vehicle through ARPA, that allows us to pull 1 police vehicle out of the fiscal year 25 budget that was originally presented to you in the budget binder. And that opened up money for 3 things based on input we got from Chief and from the department. The first thing and most important thing was that pays for the salaries of the 3 COPS grant officers with a 1 July start date. We talked about a 1 January start date, but number 1, it's cheaper to do it in July. Number 2, from a recruiting perspective, it spreads the peanut butter a little bit, allows Chief some time to recruit against his current vacancies and also to recruit against new vacancies that'll be there in the summer. So Chief felt that the summer start was a better option for him. So that helps us with that. The other thing it would do for us, and this is something that both Chief Thomas and Chief Johnson have asked for me as the administrator consistently over the 4 years that I've been here, which is converting the sidearms that they have from 45 caliber to 9mm. There's a officer safety aspect involved, and we want to make sure that the most amount of our officers are the best qualified and most accurate when it comes to firearms training. And so based on the feedback we've gotten from the department, 9mm was the preferred weapon to go with. And so this will allow us to fully transition all officers from the 45 caliber sidearm to a 9mm sidearm. That also includes the holsters, the ammunition, and the optics associated with those weapon systems. So it'll allow us to fully do that. And lastly, it allows us to put $10,000 back into veterinary services within the animal control line within public safety. So right now, I believe we have it listed as $6,000 in the 25 budget, but this would bump it up to $16,000. So ultimately, doesn't do everything for everybody, but we wanted to make sure that if we were going to make a change on the budget within public safety, that the majority of the changes would reside within public safety. And so what you're going to see next week in the budget book and the extract that you're going to get from the finance department through Jamie Paul's office is that this will reflect these three things based on the removal of one vehicle out of the budget. And one police vehicle is just under $100,000. That's why we're able to do all of these things, because when you get a fully kitted out Tahoe with light bar and a cage and the dash cam and all the accoutrement that go with it, it's an expensive vehicle. So that's how we're able to do this based on the ARPA spend plan that you all proposed. But I'll pause for any questions first on the ARPA impacts, or if you have anything you want to ask about the budget.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
On the additional 10,000 to the veterinarian services and animal control, are we talking about the dog pound?
What?
Or whatever you call it. All right,
What that does is it gives veterinary services. So we have this line specifically is to allow dogs to be taken to the vets for
just to be
service,
checked.
if you will.
Yeah.
Before we,
All right, but this has nothing to do with the, what do we do for the budget for the animal, for the building?
The city council is considering, under the animal control line, is a separate project, which is the flooring.
Yeah.
The flooring is still in the budget. So that was in the budget as a separate line. It wasn't embedded in a line. It's a separate project, and that is untouched.
Now, do we still, is there one veterinarian that does our work? At one time, we would, now y'all wouldn't remember this, Dr. Hawk. He did all the city work, picked up the animals on the streets and and this sounds gross, but we charge per pound, stuff like that. But so do we have one person or
That's one. I'm not prepared to discuss that quite yet, because I think part of it is we have to get the budget set.
Oh,
and then normally we go out and do a contract, an RFP and RFQ for veterinary services.
But this is not a line item in the budget.
It is veterinary services is a line item in the budget
under
animal control.
animal control.
So this is
we're
just
adding money to it.
an additional 10,000.
That's correct.
It was 6, and now we're going to 16.
That's correct. Under the current 2025 budget, under animal control, we have $4,500 in supplies. That's the equipment that Officer McBride uses, on a daily basis inside the kennels itself. You have the TNR, the Trap Neuter Release Program, which previously had been budgeted for $5,000, but was added this year, or proposed to be $7,500, because they fully used it last year. So we figured it was a good program, and it's one that we can increase, and that's puts us at $7,500. And then we had removed or bumped down veterinary services to $6,000, and that's largely based on the fact that even though there was money in the budget in previous years for some of these services, they weren't fully utilized. So if you set, as a random number, if you set aside $30,000 for veterinary services, but you're only executing it at $12,000 a year, why would you continue to budget at $30,000 and just have that out there? So we try to right-size the budget this year based on actual expenditures, not based on estimates. And so I think by moving $10,000 into veterinary services, based on the feedback I got from Chief and from Animal Control, that's a number they feel like they could execute in full and not have a bunch of fluff left over. So we think that's a good compromise to be able to do this year.
But we do have a separate line for the flooring. That's not part of that budget. That's a separate.
That's correct.
item.
No, I think
No, it was
I think the
8,000.
flooring is like $6,000.
I think it was 8. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
But, and are we still,
The animal shelter floor resurfacing project is listed for $8,000 under building and fixed equipment in the public safety budget.
in,
Go ahead. No, you go.
no, go ahead.
This might be for Chief Johnson, that know that. Who picks up dead animals on the streets?
Officer McBride.
Oh, he does.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Joe.
And also, where do these animals go when they pick them up?
Officer McBride, he follows the proper protocol in disposing of them. He disposes of them
there's a protocol he disposes of them. We don't need to talk about how he disposes of
They
them.
do not go in the FEMA pile.
Well, I remember that, like I said, years ago, you were charged by the pound. If it was a deer, weighed 50 pounds, you were charged according to the pound, weight of the animal.
So we talked about what last week or week before about maybe doing some improvements at the animal control facility. And McGee, you brought up a good point. Way to maybe help fund some things. Is that still being talked about?
Yeah.
We do have, with the Public Safety Foundation, the Friends of North Augusta Animal Group is going to come speak to that foundation. They're both nonprofit foundations, so they'll have to work out if they want to go that route, but that would be an option.
All right, perfect.
They
Go ahead and
speaking to
move on.
council or each other?
No, so Friends of North Augusta Animals is going to come. So you guys have the Beautification Foundation. We've got the Public Safety Foundation. Their group is going to come speak to the Public Safety Foundation in December.
Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Mayor, subject to any questions on ARPA and budget, we're going to move into the public safety headquarters, the new public safety headquarters. And so based on the current level of operation, there are still some things happening in the building to include the final verification of the second elevator, but that will not preclude the initial move in. And so I've authorized Chief Johnson to move CID, our detectives, into the building come next Monday. And so that will allow us to shake out some of the systems, make sure the badge readers are doing what they're supposed to do, all the lights work, all the things that will give us a shake out of the building. So CID will move in there first, starting on Monday. And then my intention is to have courts operational along with courts personnel during the first operational week in January of 2025. So we would move courts over at that point in time. And then the remainder of the personnel, that's a date to be determined, but right now it looks like February. But that's really tied to the 911 circuit install. It's not just having a phone line. There's some very specific South Carolina protocols circuit-wise to make sure that you have an always-on 911 presence into that building. It has to do with having multiple circuits and multiple vendors. And so ultimately what we're getting told now is February is the target date for that. And so that's what's going to predicate the move for our dispatchers and for our shift officers, the patrol section and the leadership there of public safety. And then we'll set a ribbon cutting date immediately following that move. So I'll pause for any questions from council. Mr. Mayor, that is the extent of my administrative reports for this evening. Study session is yours.
Yeah. I think only I have is just we've got a lot of events. Carl shared Small Business Saturday. Come support small business here in North Augusta. Tinseltown is going to be great. There's going to be music, Christmas tree, Santa Claus, Christmas tree lighting, Cocoa Crawl. That's December 3rd, 5 to 7. The parade from the Lions, December the 8th. We'll participate in that as a council, which would be great. So, again, this is a wonderful time that you just see a lot of small town America in North Augusta. We'll have the trolleys running. It'll be decorated. So, I love the Christmas tree lighting because grandparents will bring their grandkids. They ride the trolley. There's music. The trolley's lit. The streets are lit with our new trees. I mean, it's small town America. So just come on out and experience what an incredible community we have.
And one more thing here, Brother Mayor. I was at Wife Saver the other week, last week after the council. Well, these four men were sitting there, and I said, well, I bet anything y'all are the tree picker-uppers. And so they got to laughing, but I went to them and introduced myself, and I told them how thankful we are for them, and you've just made a difference in North Augusta. They were for Alabama, near Selma, Alabama. But they said, I want to tell you, of all the cities we visited and that we go work, this is one of the best towns that we have ever been in. People are friendly. They try to help us, give us stuff. He said, I said, well, buddy, I hate to tell you, but you're right. This is the best city in town. And I would just like to tell the citizens of North Augusta to be thankful this week because of what we've been through. And when we go, and like I said, I try to thank God every day for little things. But when I turn on my light switch, what a blessing. What a blessing. So this week, North Augusta, you have a happy Thanksgiving and just count all your blessings. Don't look at the bad stuff.
We got a big event on Saturday. Go ahead.
So we will have the Palmetto Peach Half Marathon, 10K and 5K. We will be posting. There are no road closures, but there will be roads down to one lane. So we'll get those posted out to public safety and everybody from there. But we're expecting around 1,800 participants. So people want the most ever post hurricane, which I would have thought it would have gone down. So people eat their turkey and then go run it off. Yeah.
That's awesome. Great job. Anybody else, Mr. Stool? David, you good? You good? Okay. All right. Have a happy Thanksgiving.